Alrighty, right. So today, as I mentioned before, today is all about getting our stuff into Unity. I love working in Unity. It's a really cool app. I think the pipeline between Modo and Unity is really, really easy to learn and is really easy to understand. However, there are a couple challenges on the Modo side that we need to be mindful of before we start exporting our content out over into Unity. So today is going to be just kind of a workflow day as we understand the pipeline between these two applications and really kind of dig into how we need to export our files correctly to get the results that we desire over in Unity. Working between different applications is always going to be a challenge. It's not easy. Doesn't matter if you're sending your models to Unity, to Maya, to 3D Studio Max. The moment that you have to exchange data from one app into another, things get sticky a little bit. So we're going to start our conversation off today by talking about some of the pitfalls that people often fall into when they're exporting their content from Modo and getting it into Unity correctly and cleanly the first time. If we go over to our GCOM 424 course page on renderography.com, you're going to find that I've created a new page here called Generating Environments in Unity 3D. And as you would imagine, the conclusion of our blacksmith shop is crafting an environment for our blacksmith shop in Unity. So by the end of today, you'll have a really good understanding of how to get your stuff out and get it into Unity, and then generate a custom terrain or environment in Unity that includes the illusion of grass, trees, rocks, shrubs, a whole bunch of different things. This is going to be the first part of this conversation. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to continue to expand upon the Unity toolset that will ultimately allow us to create some really neat things, some honest, really neat things, including the visibility of ground shadows through our directional lights, halo effect, environmental effects like fog, and a whole bunch of other really neat things, and diffusion. We're going to take a look at that over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to start by laying a solid foundation of skills on the environment side, but don't worry, we're going to continue to expand upon that as we go across the next couple of weeks. At the end of this process, you're going to create a simple little level that's going to demonstrate your ability to make something in Modo and get it out and into Unity and create a simple little game. So basically what we're going to be crafting this week is kind of like a little walk-around, a walkthrough of our blacksmith shop. You're going to be able to put your blacksmith shop in the middle of the game, cruise around it in 3D, and interact with it as if it were a real actual game level. Our lab assignment this week is going to allow us to practice this in a very, very small scale. It's a really fun one. It's a simple one. I've given you some assets in the Resources tab. If you haven't downloaded them already, please save them to your local hard drive. You will need them for the lab assignment today. It's a really easy one. It's just kind of a pipeline exercise. Totally technical. There's no artistic ability required to finish this lab assignment. This will be the easiest 25 points you will earn this semester. Okay? I really mean it this time. This is an easy one. This is like a softball pitch, okay? This is like a slow softball pitch that I advertise, All right, so let's jump into it. We're going to continue working with our example that we were working with last week in our little forge. Let me just kind of zip over real fast and open up the project file. All right, so as soon as Modo opens here, we'll have a good look at our project, and I also want to talk a little bit about textures too today, because when we talk about getting stuff out of Modo, we have to be mindful of our shader tree, the material network that we crafted to get the result that we want. This will also give us an opportunity to very quickly kind of refresh and remind ourselves about the tiling texture production pipeline that we started to explore last week. Let's just start there. I'm going to go over to my UV layout tab, and I'm just going to very quickly show my UV map. So I'll go over to my Lists tab. There we go. Expand the UV map section. Here's the Forge Parts UV map. And you can see all of my UVs kind of displayed inside of my UV editor. And we have a whole bunch of stuff in there. Do we care where they're placed inside our UV grid? No. No, we don't care. What's the most important thing that we care about when we're using tiling textures to create the diffuse texture information for our object? Organized materials, because the material is really driving the entire texturing pipeline here. No longer, gone are the days of where we utilize this one master Photoshop texture to determine how these objects look. The material and the tiling texture within that material are directly going to influence how our object is going to look. So in addition to having an organized material network in our shader tree, we also have to ensure that all of the UV islands themselves are proportional to each other, right? Meaning that they all have to be in the relative scale to each other to ensure that the effect of the tiling texture is duplicated correctly across the entire, across all the polygons that are connected to that object. Let's just illustrate that here for a second. Let's just very, very quickly travel back over to CG Textures real fast and download some CG Textures. Download some tiling textures. Let me make sure, okay, good. And we'll just very, very quickly, we won't do all of them, but maybe we'll do a couple of them, okay? I think we'll start with brick. And we'll do rounded brick. Here we go. This looks pretty fantastic. And I think I want the base of my, I want the base of my little house to look like this. So I want to snag that tiling texture, download it to my computer. I think I want the top of my little house to be kind of that cool plaster. And I think what's low-am walls? Let's see what this looks like. Interesting, interesting. Nope, I don't think that's what I'm going for here. How about, let's just do bare. See if we can find some fun ones. And I think, this is probably where I'm going to hang out for the rest of the day. And let's just use that one. I think that one's ugly. Yep, that one's ugly. No likey. I shouldn't be so picky. I think if I remember correctly, we ended up using, I think this one. No, that wasn't it. Yeah, I think it was this one. Let's use this one. Yeah. Cool. I think that's going to be my guy. Let's download that one real fast. Excellent. And the last one that I need to go snag real fast will be some Italian texture for all of our wood beams. And I think it's might be under rough. Yeah, let's use this one. I've used this one a number of times, and it's a good one to work with. All right. So I've just downloaded some textures. I haven't downloaded textures for all of my elements inside of my little scene. Of course, we have to do the roofing tiles and what have you. But this is at least a good start to understand and remind ourselves about the process that we need to employ to get our tiling texture system working the way it is, the way that it needs to. Okay, so I've already created some materials here. So if we examine the contents of my shader tree, you can see that this wood material group has our familiar Modo checker in it, and I don't need all of that stuff, so I'm just going to delete it. And now I'm going to start inserting all the image maps that I just downloaded from CG Textures. Excellent. There we go. Let's just analyze the results that we're getting here, and that's good enough. It's good enough for the time being. I'm digging it. Fantastic. Now let's see. All right, I'm going to create a new material for the base of my house. Call this I don't know, first floor. Go. And I want to throw in another image map in there. There we go. Coolio. Now those bricks look a little big, do they not? Yeah, those look massive. So how am I going to change that? Yeah, I love it. Correct answer. Physically edit the size of our UVs. By increasing their size in the UV editor, you can see that we're having a direct impact as to how that tiling texture is being displayed across the surface of our geometry. And that's starting to look a little bit more realistic. I may have gone too far with that, so let me just scale them down a bit. Yeah, I'm kind of a perfectionist. There we go. All right. And then last but certainly not least, all of these guys in here, the walls are going to get that stucco material that I just downloaded from the web. All right, there we go. Now that looks horrible. So let's go in and find all the UVs for these guys. Fantastic. Now, we also have some other issues in here that we need to look at, okay? You can see if you look very, very closely in here, the texture is being projected onto those polygons at a different size. How can I unify all the sizes here and get them in the right ballpark? I need to adjust the proportions of each other quickly. What's a fast way of doing it? Sew them all together. I think that's a great way of working. So if I start with this edge here, can select that edge, and you can see the purple one automatically highlight inside of our UV grid, representing that it's the exact same edge, just on two different UV islands. And let's just sew them together. I want the selected edge to be the one that remains in its current location, so I'll choose the move and sew option of selected. Boom. Let's just kind of keep cruising here. Let's go all the way around the horn. Sew everything up. Something like that. Brilliant. Now I can guarantee that all of these UV islands are the exact same size, and the texture is going to be mapped correctly to those elements. Now let's see if we can maybe just increase the size a little bit here. All right. Now I'm liking the way the details of this thing are coming across. However, I don't necessarily like the vertical position of that texture across the mesh. And as I do that, you can see that one of the issues that we'll run into when we're working with tiling textures. Yeah, now we're seeing a very recognizable pattern. Waddell is absolutely right. So how can I resolve this quickly? Keep moving it, or, and I know this seems almost blasphemous, we can actually edit. You know, I want to have this damage kind of floating up here at the top. That's going to work really well with my with the rest of my model. So one of the things that I could do is I can just edit the bottom of my UVs, okay? Just change their scale. Oops, excuse me. I think I went a little too far there. Okay, let's do this. One of the things that I've learned that we can do, instead of moving things, let's scale them vertically. Yeah, now the entire texture is stretching proportionally across the entire UV island, or across the entire object, and that's better. That's much better. Yeah, the stretching's not too bad. You want it, whenever you're changing the size of your UVs, you want to be careful, okay? You don't want to stretch them to a point where it's really, really noticeable that there's some distortions being created on the actual texture itself, so be careful. Be super careful, okay? You have to use your eyeballs to help figure out where you want all these things to flow into. All right, let's unhide the rest of my mesh. Yeah, and that's starting to work pretty well. Well, shoot, let me just go grab a texture for the roof. I can't leave the roof undone. All right, roofing, and let's do, oh, I don't know. Let's do a lovely thatched roof. No, that's going to make our entire object very brown. Let's do ceramic tiles. I know it's not going to work at all visually, but this might be fun. Let's just download the tiling texture, put it on the mesh. Let's grab that roofing tiles. Aha. Whoa. Okay, so we have some issues here with our roof. Let's fix those issues real quickly before we go any further and get it dialed and set. Now, there are a couple different ways that we can change how our UV maps, or excuse me, how our texture is going to be projected on top of our UV islands, okay? The polygons that are connected to those UV islands. Changing the size of our UVs is one way. What's another way? You got it. Changing that horizontal and vertical wrap value in the actual texture locator itself. This is actually kind of a neat way of working. However, it does present a few challenges over in Unity. We have to basically duplicate this value over in Unity, so we can't forget it, although it is an option for us. If I go into my texture locator, the horizontal and vertical wrap channel are going to allow us to determine how many times this one tiling texture is repeated within the positive UV quadrant. So if I put this value to like 5 by 5, you can see that we're getting a much smaller distribution, or excuse me, smaller pattern across the tiles of our roofs. Okay, and I've instantaneously can see that I did not proportionately scale these objects to each other. Let me just do it real fast. These are not in the same ballpark. There we go. Now we're talking. Yeah, that's close. And I'm looking at the size of each one of these roofing tiles and just kind of getting it right in the ballpark there. Okay, so using that horizontal and vertical wrap is a good way to very quickly get these UVs in the right proportion. But it's a value that we're going to have to remember to change once we get our object over into Unity. So let's just revisit real quickly, visually, what we've accomplished here. So I have everything but some of these detail pieces defined and my chimney defined, but we can do that over in Unity. However, let's let's go ahead and set the network already and set it up. I have a material established for my chimney. That's all dialed and ready to go. But let's get these in their own material. And I don't care so much about the inside of the house. Oops. There we go. And we'll just call this support beams. There we go. All Unity really cares about is that material, okay? Unity is going to look at this material network that we've established in our shader tree and reconstruct it over in Unity. It's critically important, and I really mean critically important, that we name each one of our material groups here in Modo, because that name is going to travel with us over into Unity. So you must be organized. If you have a whole series of material groups that are titled untitled, okay, or just material, you're going to confuse yourself as to the role of that material over in Unity. We want to make it as easy as we can for our brains to decode the information that we're seeing and ensure that the correct texture file is being assigned to the correct material. Unfortunately, Unity doesn't automatically grab the correct diffuse texture map and place it inside of our material network in Unity. We have to reassign these tiny textures back to their associated material in Unity. Okay? Okay. So I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get my model out of Modo and into Unity. Here's a suggestion that I would make, and this is a suggestion that has come from a lot of years of production, okay? We always want to give ourselves the opportunity to go back and fix something, okay? However, we need to change our project file and get it kind of Unity ready to a certain degree. That entails stripping out all the extraneous stuff that Unity does not care about. The only thing that Unity really wants is the geometry and the model file. It doesn't want anything else. So it doesn't want the cameras, doesn't want the lights, doesn't want the texture locators, doesn't want the shaders, the render outputs in our shader tree. It just wants geometry and materials. That's all it wants. Okay? So by creating a new project file, a Unity-ready project file, we can strip all that stuff away and export just the content that we want Unity to use. Let's do it real fast. Ow. Just tripped on the chair. That's not advisable. I'm going to create a new file save as. And this one, I'm going to leave it the same version number, okay? Because we still need to make a visual connection in our project directory as to the role of each one of these files. So version 2 is, this file here is still going to be representative of what the content of the version 2 project file looks like. However, I'm going to append the file name with Unity so I know that this is the Unity version of version 2 in my system. Okay? I'm not going up to version 3. I'm staying at version 2. That way there's a visual relationship just on the file name as to the role between version 2 and then version 2 Unity. Okay? And we're going to keep it in the same location as the other one. All right. So now that we've completely disconnected version 2 from version 2 Unity, we can start going through and deleting all the extraneous stuff inside of our Moto system that we don't need anymore. Excuse me, I'm just going to turn off show vertices so we don't need to see them. There we go. All right, so let's go here into our item list and start nuking stuff that we don't need or that Unity doesn't need. If we were to send this project file over to Unity as is, all of this other stuff is going to come along for the ride. All of my backdrop items are going to go, all of my cameras, my lights, texture locators, everything that's in this list is going to make the trip over into Unity. I don't want any of that. Actually, I don't want, the only thing that I want is the mesh item and my materials. So we're going to delete basically everything but the elements that we want to use. Having a separate version of our project file is really going to help in this process. So I can delete all this stuff. Delete. There we go. It's going to say, are you really sure? Yeah, I'm really sure. Yes. Yes to all. Bye-bye. Okay. Shadow catcher is going to go. All of this stuff is going to go. We're going to delete a lot of stuff in here. At the conclusion of this process, we just have our model, and let's give it a good name. Instead of rough, let's just call this Forge. There we go. All right. I want to show you some new tools over the next couple of weeks that will change this system, but just for today, just to lay down the foundation level idea of what is going to be sent over into Moto, we're going to strip away all this information. Okay? Since I duplicated my project file with this new one, I always have that version 2 to fall back on. The whole idea is that we don't destroy our original. We always want to have a copy of our original file just in case we need to make a change, just in case we need to make an update to our project, to our model. Okay, so that's phase 1, cleaning up our item list. Now we also have to clean up our shader tree as well, because all of this stuff in here is also going to make the trip. Unity understands the role of a material, so it's important that we kind of go through and name some of these materials and get them going where we need to go and delete the stuff that we don't need. For example, we certainly don't need the base shader and all these render outputs. Let's delete those. Okay, we don't need the base material anymore. Let's delete that. Okay, and now we're left with just these material groups. Now, out of a habit, I also go in and name these the exact same as their material group. Just to be sure that this information flows where it needs to go, and that we can decode it and understand its role over in Unity. Setting up our scene like this just hedges our bets, okay? It allows us to ensure that we're going to be able to reconstruct this entire system cleanly and easily, quickly, over in Unity. All right. There it is. I'm happy. I'm ready to go. Let's get this baby out of Moto and into Unity. Exporting our stuff from Unity is really, really easy. But there are a couple things that we want to make sure we look at specifically before we hit the magic button. Okay? The export menu is under the File pull-down menu at the top of the screen. So the File, File, and then we want to do Export As. Okay. Now there is an important distinction between Save As and Export As. Does anyone know the difference between Save As and Export As? Yeah. Not so much. Not so much. Save As. Yeah, go ahead, B.
When you export as, you get to pick what kind of file extension you want to save for, export it as. So exporting gives you the option to export it into different software applications like Maya. So it could be used in Maya.
Yeah, any number of apps, absolutely, and in any number of file formats, absolutely. They're both going to allow us to change the extension, the file format of our Luxology project file. If I was to choose Save As, watch what happens, and hopefully I can undo this. If I was to do Save As, watch what happens specifically to that text up here at the top of the screen. That's the file name that's currently active and open inside of Moto. Okay, notice that the extension is .lxo for Luxology object file. Okay, awesome. If I was to do save as, it's going to convert the existing open document into that new file. So in many ways, I lose my LXO. I don't lose it in the sense that it's gone, but the file that's open is no longer going to be that LXO file. It's going to be the object file or the Colada file or the FBX. Let me show you what I'm talking about. File, we'll do save as, and let's change it to, let's do FBX. FBX 2013. There we go. All right. Now it's thinking about it. Hopefully this works. Oh, it crashed. Awesome. Thanks, Moto. So we won't do FBX this time. We'll do Colada file. Unexpected exit. No. Let's just open up. And this is another reason why we spend so much time managing all of our media. Excuse me. Let me just make sure. Here we go. Okay, so there's my house. There's my forge again. Awesome. Let's do file save as again. And this time, let's just do a Colada file. And it's thinking about it. Yeah, okay, check it out. Notice that the currently open project file ends in .dae now. So we don't have a Luxology project file open. We have a .dae. It's a completely different file format that has a completely different set of rules. We're no longer working within the safety of the Luxology project file. It's a different type of project file, okay? It's a different type of 3D file format, okay? Just because Luxology can open a file format doesn't mean it's the best file format to work with inside this application. We've got to be very careful about this, okay? Certain file formats are going to lock different components or different items within inside of our system. Certain file formats don't allow you to work at the component level. They only allow you to work at the item level. So when we're working in Modo, we want to make sure that we're always in a Luxology project file. However, that Luxology project file, that LXO, isn't a file that is supported over in Unity, so we have to convert it. We never want to do a save as when we're getting stuff out of Modo and into a format that can be used inside of Unity. Okay? We always want to do export as. Export as. And let me just close this scene here real fast. And I'm going to reopen my Luxology project file that I had a moment ago. There it is. Fantastic. And now let's do file export as, and we're going to get the exact same dialog box, but the only big difference between, or the huge difference between the two is that it's not going to change the existing already open project file in Modo. It's still going to be an LXO, and then it's going to create a new one unopened inside of our computer at the location that we determined. So here are all the different file formats that we can export from Modo. Some of them work well, some of them don't work very well. Some of these are niche file formats that can only be used in very, very specific situations. Others are industry standard that we want to use and employ to get our content into any application. And there are some rock stars on this list. There are 3 that I recommend people use all the time, okay? There are a lot of different formats in here, so which ones are our rock stars? The one that I go to, my bread and butter, is the Colada file. Has anyone never used a Colada file before? I love me some Colada. It's awesome. The Colada file format is an open-sourced file format, so it's free. It's free, and it's an industry standard. Everyone can accept a Colada format. It's maintained by a governing kind of organizational body of developers that determine which features and which outlines are going to be supported in the file itself. But it's open source. If anyone can extend that file format to do whatever it is that they want to do. This is awesome. This is really, really great. Okay. As I mentioned before, it's an industry standard file format that is just basically accepted by everyone, and it's fantastic. Because it's open source, no one owns the source code for that file format. So what we can do is that we can add extensions to that file format to allow certain material characteristics to make the trip over into other applications. For example, one of the things that we can send out of our Colada files are all the material characteristics that we establish in our shader tree. So the reflectivity values and specular amount and all that jazz is going to be embedded in the file format itself. Rock and roll. This is cool. So it's kind of like a smart file format. It remembers certain attributes of our scene and bakes it into the file. We love it. We like it. Okay. This is the one that I almost always start with. Okay. And then if I have troubles in the export procedure, then I start looking at others. So let's just make a Colada file. The extension for a Colada file is .dae. Yes, sir. We'll get to the other two in a minute. Okay, we'll come back to those. So .dae, that's the file extension for this open source file format, and it's awesome. Let's make one right on my desktop. Let's hit save. And there it is. Okay, check this out. This is how awesome the Colada file format is. Even Apple understands the awesomeness of the Colada file format. You can open this file format in preview. And if I had a trackpad, I'd be able to, I can cruise around. Of course, all the textures are not linked the way they need to be linked. But I think it's just really cool that even within preview, which is just a document preview and editing app on the Mac, you can open up 3D geometry, cruise around, and take a look at it. I just find that really kind of cool. Anyway, so that's my little cup holder feature of the day. So there it is. There's the DAE. This is my favorite. This is my go-to guy 9 times out of 10. Okay, I recommend using the Colada file format before any others. Okay. However, it's not the only one that we need to look at. There are 2 other options in here that will give us pretty good results. I like Colada, but the FBX file format is also another really nice alternative. FBX is another industry standard file format. It's owned, as you can see by the title of the file format, by Autodesk. Autodesk is that 900-pound gorilla within our industry, so where they go, we kind of also go as well. Autodesk is the proprietary owners of Maya, 3D Studio Max, and Softimage, and Motion Builder, and Mudbox, and they're a big player in the media entertainment software side of things. Okay, so they own this file format, and they specifically have developed it so that they can interchange data from Maya and Max, or Maya and Mudbox, or Maya and Motion Builder, or Motion Builder to 3D Studio Max. So it allows them to work with inside their ecosystem very cleanly. Well, because that ecosystem is so large and so prevalent within inside of our industry, a lot of other software developers, including the guys down at Luxology, have adopted that file format as something that they're going to support. FBX is cool because it grabs basically everything in your scene. It's a great way to send your entire scene to another application. The FBX file format, in addition to obviously saving the geometry, will also bundle up all your textures, it'll grab all your lights, it'll grab all your cameras, which are kind of cool, and here's the kind of the cool thing, it'll also export all your animations out too, which is pretty rad. Okay, so it's a fantastic file format to send between different applications. Okay. However, there are some issues with the file format, some logistical issues that present some challenges. Because it's owned by Autodesk, Autodesk has created a small little black box that they get to control, right? So they determine the specification of what's going to be included and not included inside of that file format. This can be a little bit of an issue as it turns into a moving target for software developers to support. The rules for the FBX file format, if you will, are seemingly always changing. So certain iterations of the FBX file format will allow you to do a whole lot of things, and then sometimes they update the FBX file format and it breaks a whole lot of the dependencies within the file. Every once in a while I get a lot of people asking, why is it called FBX? Okay, FBX actually stands for Filmbox. And Filmbox was an application that was started a long time ago in a galaxy far away. I actually worked on Filmbox for a while. And Filmbox was a motion capture application. That's all it did. Well, it accepted motion capture data coming across our cameras, and we were able to edit the motion capture data and clean it up and apply it to our characters and get some really cool, compelling animations, which is awesome, rock and roll. and then a company called Colada bought it, and Colada actually came out and made an application called Motion Builder, and Motion Builder was then purchased by Autodesk, and the FBX kind of letters there have followed the format across the entire journey. So it's kind of one of those legacy file formats that have been around for probably about 15 years now. Okay, so FBXs are also very widely supported. Please note, however, that there are two different versions of the FBX file format within inside of Modo. We had the 2010 implementation, and then we had the 2013 implementation. I don't do a whole lot of FBX stuff, but when I do, I always try to grab the most recent implementation of that file format to ensure that all the details of my scene are going to get exported correctly. Okay, we'll hit save. Hopefully Modo won't crash. Go. Let's just go over to our desktop and see if it's there. Yeah, there it is. So I got my DAE on top, got my FBX down low. The last file format that I like to champion is an oldie but a goodie. It's the first one that was developed, and that's the Wavefront OBJ. It's the object file. If you run into problems with your DAE, your Colada file, and if you run into problems with your FBX file, export out an OBJ. It will work. It will work. The OBJ is the oldest file format inside of the list of file formats that we have here in Luxology. It is, in every sense, the only true last industry standard in the 3D geometry world. It is a relatively unintelligent file format, however. It's not going to capture all this really groovy stuff that Colada and FBX are renowned for. An OBJ, it's just going to be geometry. That's all it is. It's just your geo. It's just your polygons. It doesn't even understand your polygons, your UV maps, and your materials. That's it. So it's really unintelligent, but it's bulletproof. It will work. It will work. The OBJ is kind of like my last hurrah. If I can't get anything to work, I want to push out an OBJ and then just hope for the best. Okay. In addition, or to kind of illustrate the idea that the OBJ is an industry standard, hit save. If you wanted to open up a 3D project in Photoshop, you'd have to pump out an OBJ file. Do you guys know you can actually import and open up 3D models in Photoshop now? Yeah, it's stupid. Don't do it. You can, but it's stupid. Don't do it. It's not what you think it's going to be. I know almost everyone, myself included, said the exact same thing that Austin says, like, whoa, 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 can I paint on my model in Photoshop? The answer is yes, but stupid, don't do it. It's a waste. It is a waste of your time. It really is. Because Photoshop, they don't understand polygons and vertices and edges, okay? We want to be able to filter, if you will, the impact of our Photoshop brushes based on a selection like we have here in Modo, okay? The tool set just isn't there yet. And if you've ever tried to open anything, any 3D model inside of Photoshop, your performance crashes. I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible experience. Do not recommend it. That's why I don't talk about it, because it's just a monumental waste of my time. It really is. The only reason to open up a 3D model in Photoshop is to appease the graphic designers that want to have 3D text in Photoshop. That's about it. Okay? It's not a replacement for our interactive texture painting system that we find in Modo or like Mari. All right, so I got everything out. All right, one last thing just about the OBJ. If you look carefully here, when you pump out an OBJ file format, you're going to get two different files. You're going to get the actual object file, and then that MTL is going to contain some material information. You want to hang on to both of these, okay? You want to hang on to both of these and ensure they're included inside your project directory over in Unity. All right, so let's just take a look organizationally what I have here. So these are all the files that I'm going to use to define, except for that one. There we go. These are all the files that I'm going to use to define my forge over in Unity. These are our core assets, okay? These are the building blocks of our model over in Unity. We need to begin to manage these, okay? The problem and the big issue that sink a lot of people as they start to transition over into Unity is that they don't manage their assets. They don't collect all the textures that they're using inside of their Modo project file, inside of their Unity asset directory. Now here's where you need to make a division inside of your own personal workflow. You have all your Modo stuff on one side, right? That needs to be separate and disconnected from all of your Unity stuff. We're branching our project directories now. We need to have we need to have independency between the two, okay? We don't want to have a lot of things cross-talking to one another because the computer is going to get confused. It's going to mix up which files and which textures to load onto our geometry. And it's going to, trust me, it's going to turn into an organizational super nightmare, okay? Because you're not going to understand which files have been loaded and which files are only to be included in the project directory in Unity, okay? So let me kind of illustrate this idea and what I would recommend that we start working with. So I want to create a new folder, and let's just call this Forge. Oops, actually I already have a folder called Forge. Let's just call this Forge Unity. Okay, let me go grab this. Okay. So if you look at the files that I have on my screen right now, these are all my Unity files, okay? But I also have some files that are specific to just my master Luxology project file, okay? If you look at the contents of that, you can clearly see that inside of my Modo stuff, I have all of my Modo files. These are all my original LXOs. This is where I'm going to keep all my reference images, all my renders out of Modo. This is, in every sense, my Photoshop document. These are the master files that I use to generate all of my Unity files, okay? We need to make sure that these are separate in different places. Because if something happens, if you keep this all in one folder, and if you lose that one folder, or if Unity corrupts the contents of that one folder, what has happened? You are screwed. You've lost everything. This is why you need to make them independent to ensure that what happens in Unity doesn't affect your master project files, okay? And I've seen Unity screw some things up from time to time, okay? I've seen Unity corrupt files because of I/O errors or just for whatever reason, okay? It can be a problem. It can be a massive problem. So just manage the media, split things, okay? Now, for example, one of the things that I often do whenever I'm working inside of my Modo system is that I have a textures folder. And all of these files would historically go inside of my textures, right? Oops, inside of textures, there we go. So here's all the textures that I'm using over in my Luxology project file. However, I need to duplicate these. Don't reference them, okay? Don't link all of your Unity stuff to where these files are currently located. Copy them. So if I just do Command-C, open up my Forge Unity file, paste them in, and make copies of them, okay? Don't have them be in one master folder. That way you ensure that nothing ever happens to your originals, okay? All right. Okay. Before we start jumping into Unity, there's one last media management thing that we need to talk about. Unity is a huge, massive program. It's going to generate a lot of content for you on the back end, okay? A lot of content. So we need to keep ourselves organized as we possibly can be, okay? We're going to create something here in a minute. Oops, excuse me. We're going to create something here in a minute that is going to be new and different and weird and wacky for us in the Modo world. Unity requires one folder. This folder is called your project directory. All of your Unity-specific stuff is going to flow into that one master folder, okay? So if you think about it, what we're doing here is that we're separating out all of our content. We're going to pretend, just for the time being, that this is our project directory for Unity, and then this is all of our original Luxology stuff. They need to be visually connected in some sort of hierarchy. So you might want to have another folder called Forge, like master, okay, or just Forge, and then split this. This one be Forge Luxology, or Forge Modo, depending on the way you think. Okay. Forge Modo, and then Forge Unity. There we go. And then both of those are going to flow into the master project directory. So these are going to be children of our master. Okay, so if you look at the contents, Forge Modo, that's going to have all of your Modo specific stuff. And then Forge Unity, this is going to be the project directory for the actual application itself. Okay? It's important that we start separating out these two different levels within inside of our production pipeline. Kind of makes sense so far? Kind of makes sense? Okay. I think once you see what Unity does, the light bulb will click and it will make a little bit more sense. All right. Just for the time being, I'm going to take out these textures inside. I'm going to empty out Forge Unity, and I'm actually going to delete Forge Unity. Okay? I'm going to delete it and empty my trash, so that it's just gone. And we're going to start working inside of Unity. So down in your dock, I've gone ahead and I've added a executable icon for Unity, sitting right down there next to Modo. It's this guy that looks like the cube that's been rotated, the black and white icon. That's going to launch Unity for you. So let's do this together. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, this machine is hit reactivate. What do you get? You get, this is literally the first time. Activate your license. Okay. Activate. Okay. Whoa, hold on a sec. Free version. Yeah. So before you go any further, let me just remote desktop this to the rest of the classroom so we all can see what the input procedure needs to be. Okay. This is literally probably the first time on some of these machines that Unity has been launched on these machines since we installed it in August. Okay, so when we launched Unity, this is what B is getting. What we need to do is just hit reactivate your license. Okay, Unity is free, but there's also a pro version that you have to pay for. Okay, with the free license, you get basically the entire application. You get all the scripting. You get everything for free, which is awesome. However, notice what's happening on B's on this little activate dialog box. Okay, there's a couple different options in here. It says activate the existing serial number you received in your invoice. Don't check that. That's only if you bought the pro version. You would get a serial number if you purchased it. What we want to do is activate the free version of Unity, okay? And then hit OK. And don't activate the free 30-day trial of Unity Pro. Because, all right. So for this one, please sign in using your personal Unity account. Otherwise, oh, crap. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Darn it. Yeah, let's. Damn, crap. You know what we can do is that we can use my email address, my work email address. But I'm not entirely sure what my password is for my work email address. Say again? I don't know. This is the first time that they've ever required us to do a password. In the past, it's just been an email for the free. And now they're requiring a password. So let's do this. Let me actually just take control. Really? Did that just randomly turn off? No, I turned it off. Oh, okay, great. I was freaking out for a second. Yeah, no, I think every once in a while those machines, the fans get stuck. All right, hold on just a couple seconds here, folks. I need to go check my email and get the password. Your Unity account. All right. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. So this is what we're going to do. If everyone can just launch Unity real fast for me on their machine, I'm going to sign in with my user account. Oh, are you serious? Does not matter. Oh my gosh. This is what happens when you have to when you get the free version. All right. Not Arkansas, California. Okay, that was lame. Okay, everyone open up Unity for me. And we'll do this. B, I think you're good to go. I think you're good to go. Let me just confirm that. There we go. Okay. Yep, we're good to go. All right. Okay. So, does everyone have Unity open? You get the sign up thing. So let's I want to take control of your machine, so I can do the sign up. No, don't download the new version, please. Okay. All right. Okay, I just got to go around and we got to do it. So just give me a second, okay? All right. Moving right along. Do 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 do. I know, right? Yeah, how's Thor? Is it good? In 3D, it was good? Nice. Yeah, we have an IMAX downtown. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. What? No way. Are you serious? Well, good. Now well, at least I still have my respect for the guy that plays Thor. All right, did I get everyone? Did everyone get their stuff? Launch Unity, please, so I can authenticate you. No, I control your machine now. I can spell. So weird working with this massive delay. Wow. You know, the copy doesn't work when we're doing remote like this. I mean, it kind of works, but it's for me to zip through and get everyone. What computer number are you? You're 12. There we go. Well, that's because you didn't have it open, Dylan. Yes.
Have you seen the trailer from the XMen movie? Oh, yeah.
Days of Future Past, right? It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I think that's the best way for me to kind of sum up my reaction to the new X-Men is interesting. Interesting. What's that going to look like? Yeah, I'm on the fence about RoboCop. Yeah. All right. Did I get everyone now? Yes? Yes, everyone got authenticated? All right. So everyone launch Unity real quick. And if you have any problems, I'm not fixing it because I told you to launch Unity. Now I got to do the same thing probably on my end. Yeah, it's going to open up Angry Bots. Yeah, it's their kind of demo game. Yeah, let's just play the game for a second. Let's start off today by just having fun playing a game in Unity. It'll give us an opportunity to really understand the Unity editor a little bit and working within the scene itself.
You know, there's a game tutorial on how to learn Unity on the asset store. It's the racing one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of really great tutorial levels on the asset store. Yeah, we'll talk about some of those learning resources here in a minute because there's some good ones that we need to kind of focus in on. All right, so here we go. Okay, if you get this Unity editor update check, skip new version, okay? Because actually 4.2.2 is not the current version. 4.3 is the current version. So just hit skip new version. Okay, let's stay. It's important that we stay on the version that's installed on these machines. If you were to upgrade these, you will force us into an organizational nightmare here with the school. So stay on this version. So welcome to Unity. This is a fun new work environment for us that's going to allow us to import all of our assets in, generate and code all the interactivity to make a game. So I thought we'd just kind of start the day off by just playing the Angry Bots demo, getting used to what we're seeing and working with in front of us here, and then go from there. And then we'll make a new project file and learn how to use how to import in all our stuff into that new project file. So Unity is broken out into a whole series of palettes, okay? And very similar to the way Modo works, how you establish the layout of your scene is going to determine where all of these persistent palettes are going to go. The ones that we want to focus in on for the time being is the gigantic palette here in the center. And you can see that it's broken out into two tabs. We have the Scene tab and then the Game tab. Okay, so these are two tabs. The Scene tab, can be probably most easily described as the OpenGL viewport that we're used to working with over in Modo. This is our work area. This is where we're going to be able to see the totality of our game in front of us in a real-time OpenGL environment. Now, navigating around our OpenGL environment is not difficult, but it does require us to master a couple new keyboard shortcuts along the way. Okay? So to orbit like this inside of our OpenGL viewport in Unity, we got to hold down the Alt key or the Option key on your keyboard and then left-click drag. That's the orbit. You might want to write these down because it's going to take a couple seconds for you to to transition between the old stuff and the new stuff. Okay. So the orbit is Alt or Option left and drag. Okay. To do the pan, it's Alt middle mouse button or Option middle mouse button, and that's going to allow you to do the traditional pan left and up and down. How so? Could be the problem with the mouse. Someone may have retargeted their mouse. So if, what do you mean how do you go back? Like how to zoom in and out? We're just moving our camera while we're doing. And then last but not least, to zoom in and out, it's Alt right mouse button. And that will allow you to zoom in and out. Zoom in and out. So mouse button is orbit, middle mouse pan, mouse button is zoom in and out, all holding down the Alt key or the Option key on your keyboard. Please go ahead, absolutely. And if that still doesn't work, Dylan, it's a software setting that we need to change. All right. So one other thing, you can also use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out, and so that's kind of a cool thing. All right. One of the things that we have access to that's kind of similar to the way Moto works is to auto-fit our scene within inside of our OpenGL viewport. Hitting the F key on our keyboard, or let me rephrase, yeah, hitting the F key will allow us to auto-fit. So we can frame our scene by hitting F, okay? All right. We also get a little widget over here that will remind us. This kind of serves as a compass. However, these little arrows inside of our compass will allow us to change the orientation of our OpenGL viewport to look at our scene from a number of described angles. So if we wanted to see our scene through the top, we can just click on that little green guy. And now we're seeing our scene through the top. However, this is not an orthographic viewport. This is still a perspective viewport. These are just kind of like presets, if you will. They're saved locations within our scene that the three-dimensional camera is automatically going to transition into. If you notice, we can still orbit, pan, and zoom after I've hit that little button. So these are presets. They're not like the OpenGL, or excuse me, like the orthographic viewports that we're used to dealing with over in Moto. So a slight difference. If we click on the center of the cube, it's going to return us to, the center of the cube is going to change what type of perspective is going to be drawn. We have two different types of ways to view our OpenGL scene. We can view it in isometric mode, where the illusion of foreshortening and perspective is removed, and everything is going to be drawn at an equal rate. We're not going to get any sort of inclusion of a vantage point. That's when we're in isometric mode. This is a great way to kind of simulate the way our orthographic viewports behave over in Moto. It's going into the isometric mode. Now we can get a really nice understanding of the layout without having to worry about perspective. If I click on that cube again, now we're seeing things in perspective, and the illusion that's being crafted is slightly different. Okay. Some people really enjoy working in isometric mode. Some people don't. It's important that you just know that it's there. Yeah.
You can move without pressing the button.
I didn't know that.
Right press
Slightly different, right? Because that's not an orbit. We're not actually moving our camera. Yeah. Slightly different. Slightly different. So this is kind of like as if the camera's on a tripod and we're doing this. The tripod's staying stationary and the camera is just looking around your scene. You know, a nice addition, but you know, if I left click and drag, I'm just going to get a marquee selection box. So the Option key is the only way for us to truly get an orbit, pan with the middle mouse button, and then a zoom in, zoom out with the right mouse button. It's not the only way for us to zoom around in our scene. If we hold down, if you hold down, I think this is the left mouse button. Nope, I gotta remember. Yeah, So, excuse me, if you hold down the right mouse button, you can use your W, A, S, and D keys to fly around your scene, just kind of like a first-person shooter. So if you hold down your right mouse button, then you can fly around. Some people really like working like this. It's kind of a fun thing to have at our disposal. So just hold down your right mouse button, and then holding down the W, A, S, and D keys, like a first-person shooter, will allow you to fly around. And I've just lost my scene. Yeah, I gotta hit. Here we go. So, good question. Good question. What we've been exploring so far is just the OpenGL work environment. If we wanted to jump in and physically start playing the game, we have to hit the little play, pause, and resume buttons at the top of the screen. These buttons in here are responsible for physically starting the simulation and continuing on. So let's play the game. Let's just hit the play button. Our computer's automatically going to do one of two things based on the settings. It's automatically going to it's either going to switch tabs or it's going to make it full screen depending on how your specific settings are going. And you can see that the game's running. We're getting all of our environmental effects. And now I can go away, robot, fire things, I'm on my way. Yeah, this is actually a little bit different from the earlier version. Good understanding what we need to do. Boom. All right, so a couple other things that I want to show you guys. Now, these buttons at the top of the screen, this button here, the play button, will start and stop your game. There's also a pause button. Pause is kind of dangerous because it really is just a temporary hold on all the effects that are being generated and all the actions and triggers that are being generated inside of our game engine. I very, very rarely pause my game. Usually if I need to make a change, I always stop my game. Great little keyboard shortcut to commit to memory is Command P. P as in play, or P as in pause, or program, whatever you want to do. Command P is going to start and stop your game through a keyboard shortcut. I use it all the time. Beach ball here, because it's just a big game. Let's stop the game, and we're on our way. All right. Unity has what's called a WYSIWYG environment. What you see in the game view is a direct representation as to what the gamer is going to see in the final build of the game itself. Okay? It's pretty cool. What you see is what you get. Now, how we manage our media and navigate around inside of our environment is a little bit different, okay? There's kind of three important areas that we need to focus in on inside of Unity. The hierarchy is probably the most important one of those elements inside of our scene. The hierarchy is a direct representation of the assets that are currently included in the level that we're playing inside of Unity. So what we see in the hierarchy has a direct reflection, or is a direct reflection as to the assets that are in just the level, okay? So the hierarchy is kind of the list of assets that are in the level. Keep that in mind, the level, not your entire project, okay? Because we can have multiple levels within the game, right? So the hierarchy is what's in the current level that we're playing. And you can see that we have a lot of different things, a lot of different elements in here that are in this level. A lot of spiders, some mechs. It's pretty great. Okay, anyways. Now, whenever we select something like the player, for example, inside of our hierarchy, the inspector becomes populated with all the properties and elements that determine how this object is going to be participating with inside of our game. So our inspector is very similar to that of the properties tab that we're used to seeing over in Modo. Functions almost identically, okay? It's going to list all the channels and effects and a whole bunch of other crazy things that will allow us to influence how that object is going to be drawn and interacted with, or will be interactive inside of our game. The last part of our of our Unity interface is the project tab. Now the project tab is kind of our global bin. It's our global folder that includes all of the assets that are that can be associated and inserted in any level within the game itself. Okay, so we have the hierarchy, which is the hierarchy panel, which determines the assets that are currently in the game in that level, and then we have the project tab, which is responsible for collecting and managing all the assets within the entire game itself. So we have two different hierarchies that we have to work within. The project panel, it's the master. And then we have the hierarchy, which is always a child of the content that's inside of our project. One quick thing, you can change how your layout is going to be drawn. I actually don't really like this layout. It doesn't really work visually for me. I like changing my layout, and you can do that by going up to Window, Layouts, and then we have some presets in here. I like the wide one myself. Window, Layouts. Let's do tall. This is the one that I like, tall. Personally, this is how I like to work because it puts all of my utility panels on the exact same side of the screen. Just kind of organizes my workflow a little bit cleaner. Okay? Find one that works for you. All of these panels can be moved around your scene pretty quickly. So if you don't like having your game tab in its own, or if maybe you want to have your game tab kind of like below, like down here, check it out. You can just grab that tab and you can put it wherever you want. Okay? That's kind of a cool thing. Maybe you want your game tab over here. That works. Okay? You can do that. You can customize your layout wherever you'd like. Maybe I want my game tab down here. That's kind of cool. Play my game. This is actually kind of a really cool thing. If you have your viewport stacked, check it out. You can actually see the simulation happening inside of your OpenGL viewport. So if I play my game, notice that maximize on play is turned off. And once my sim starts here, yeah, you can see all the rain up top and down below. So it's a great way to kind of debug your game and figure out what you need to do. Alright, let me stop my game here. Continue our little tour. Now, Unity has employed kind of a really interesting way of working with inside of our project directory over here on the right-hand side. You can see that it's broken it up into kind of three areas. The top area is your favorites menu, where you can associate files with certain stars. So if you have a texture file that you just love for whatever reason, you can put it at a little star next to it. And then it's a great way to filter complex project directories to get the content that you need. And then, of course, we have a whole series of folders, and then the contents of those folders are going to show up over here. I actually really don't like working inside this system. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my brain. I want to see something that behaves identically to the way the OS X Finder works on the back end of my machine. You're not going to really get what you think you're going to get over here. If they would just give me the ability to organize this section of my asset browser alphabetically in a list, I would like that. I don't like icons, okay? I rely entirely on the file names to find what I want. If you're like me and you want to change the way this is drawn, you can click on this little part of the interface and change it to a one-column layout opposed to a two-column layout. And then you're going to get something that behaves almost kind of like your Finder. So I can explore through each one of these folders and just visually see quickly all the files within those folders. Working like that makes a little bit more sense for me, but you determine how you want to work. Everyone approaches media management a little bit differently. This is how I like my environment, but it might not be how you like your environment. Figure out what works for you and move forward. Okay. Now that we're a little bit more comfortable working inside of the Unity system, let's make our own project file and start importing our assets into Unity. Okay? Let's do it with File, New Project. Okay? Now there's two distinctions in here that we need to remember, and this is an important one. So everyone stop what they're doing for a second and just really, really pay attention, because this is the landmine that everyone steps on the first couple times. we have new scene and new project. What's the difference? Bingo. New scene is a new level in an existing game. So in your mind, whenever you hear new scene, you think new level. When I wanted to make a brand new project, okay? New project. That's the global folder that's going to be constructed where all of the assets for all of the levels inside your game are going to go, okay? So we're going to create a new project. New project, I'm going to get this little pop over. It's a wizard, and inside this little wizard, you're going to have the opportunity to define a couple of different things. The first and the most important thing is the name of your project and its location, okay? This is something only you can control, okay? So you try, please manage this, manage this, manage this. I don't know where you created your Unity project file, okay? Your Unity project directory, excuse me, okay? Only you know where this is. So please, please, please make sure that you know where the location is. Here's what I like to do. I like to hit the set button. That way I get to determine the location of it, okay? And I get to control the name of my project directory. Please, whatever you do, do not call this Unity, okay? It's going to want to call this new project directory Unity, okay? Don't do that. That's silly. It's bad media management. What are we going to name our project directory? Forge, blacksmith shop. Get specific with it, okay? Get really, really specific. And then, of course, know precisely where you're going to save all this content. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to call this Pat's Forge. Save this on my desktop just so it's really easy for us to understand. Let's hit save. And now we have to import in some assets. These are all the free stuff that come with Unity. A whole bunch of different assets that we can load into the system and then use inside of our games. I think for today, what we're going to load in are just the character controller scripts and the scripts. So we'll do the character controller package and the scripts package, and I think that's going to be good enough for us today. Yeah, just for today, I think that's a step in the right direction. And then we'll hit create project. Do you want to save the changes you made to the scene Angry Bots? Don't save. That way I don't mess it up. All right, now let's going to close down Unity and open your new project. Unfortunately, in this version of Unity, you can't have multiple projects open at the exact same time. You can't even have multiple scenes open at the exact same time within an existing project. So it's kind of another thing that we have to manage. You're only allowed to have one project open at a time. It's going to take a little bit of time to open up this project, as it's copying and pasting a lot of information from the master Unity library into your own dedicated, self-contained Unity project file. So give it some time. Here we go. And now we're back. So this is what your empty Unity project file looks like. And this is exactly how it should look. All right? So let's check this out for a second. Let's understand precisely what the computer has done. So if you look very carefully up here, the top of your screen, inside your application menu, or excuse me, inside your application frame for this application, you can see this as Untitled - Pat's Forge - PC Macs and Linux Standalone. Okay? This is giving us a lot of really important information that we need to keep our eye on. Let's travel from the left side of this definition, or the left side of this line of text, to the right side. The first one says Untitled. What do you think this is? Anyone with this? This is the scene name, okay? This is the scene name. It is untitled. Is this good or bad? This is bad. This is very bad. We don't want to have untitled scene names, okay? In actuality, we haven't actually generated any scene yet, okay? It's just kind of the default. What's the Pat's Forge? This is the project directory, and then it's telling us what type of game or what type of project that this project directory has been associated with. PC, Mac, and Linux standalone games. You can, of course, change this at any time, and it has no bearing upon what you've crafted inside of the game itself. Okay? So let's make a scene. This is the first thing that we have to do. We have to have a scene in order for us to go forward. So I want to do File. Now, you can do New Scene or Save Scene. Doesn't matter in this particular situation because we don't have any. And I'm going to call this Level 01. Now, notice where it's saving this level. Where's it saving this? The asset folder. Now, did you set that? No. We want it to go in the assets folder, and I'll show you here in a second why. I'm just going to hit save. We want it to go into our assets directory. Let's hit save. Boom. And check it out. Now, inside of our application frame, it says level01.unity. Haha. And then Pat's Forge, which represents the name of our project directory. And then down in our project tab, check it out. We now have a couple things down here that will kind of give us a clue as to what Unity is doing on the back end to drive the creation of this project. We get a unique file inside of our project tab that's called level 1. Awesome. Then we also have a subfolder called standard assets. Now do me a favor. I want you to log this in your brain. Just remember that we have a file called level 1, and then we have a folder called standard assets. Okay? Just hold on to that little nugget of information for a second, because it's going to help you understand the next little bit. Whenever I create files in any application, I'm always really, really concerned about where these files are being saved. Dylan, did you create level 1? Well, that'd be why you didn't save it, or why I don't see it.
So it would be like save scene?
Save scene. All right. So whenever I create files or whenever I see files, automatically in my project tab, I'm always really concerned as to where those files exist on my machine. So let's check it out real fast. I want to hide Unity, and I want to travel over to my desktop and check it out. I have a folder here called Pat's Forge. This is the folder that I created, or that was created when I started a new project. So when you do file new project, you're going to generate a folder. And the name of that folder is going to be determined by what you typed into that little wizard. Okay? What's most important isn't so much the name of the folder, it's the contents of that folder. Let's double click on that folder and check it out. And aha, so now we have a whole series of subfolders, okay? This is the machinery of Unity generating a whole network, a whole library, if you will, of assets and scripts and databases and a whole bunch of really fun stuff on the back end of Unity for us, okay? You are not allowed to touch these. You leave them alone, okay? Just they're not even there in your mind, except, there's one exception, the assets folder. This is the only folder inside of your project directory that you are allowed to mess with, okay? Let's explore the contents of the assets directory, and I think you'll start to understand why. FYI, before we go too much further, you have to have all four or all, sometimes this temp folder goes away, and that's fine, but you have to have at least those top 3 folders in order for your game to work. If you don't have any, if you're missing the library or the project settings, your game is just not going to work, okay? It's just not going to work at all. You have to have all of these folders for your game to work correctly, because Unity is pinging these in the back end. Okay. This is why we don't model during lectures. So when I created a new project instead of Unity, Unity created this folder for me. Okay? The location was determined by me. The name was determined by me in the little wizard that popped up when I did File New Project. I just double-clicked on it. Unity created those 4 folders for me automatically. Okay? This is the Unity machine running. It's going to do a lot of stuff for us. We want it to do a lot of stuff for us. Okay? That's one of the reasons why Unity is so powerful and so prevalent within inside of our system, is that it takes away a lot of the monkey work of making a game, and it streamlines the entire process. So that's how we got those 4 folders. We have to have them. They're automatically created. And if we delete them, our game is just not going to work. Except for the assets folder. The assets folder is the only one that we get to play around with. Now, I just opened up my assets folder, and look at the contents of my assets folder. What are they? And then standard assets. Does this sound familiar? It should. Because if we go back over into Unity, check it out. What do we see there? And standard assets. What we're seeing in the project tab is actually the contents of our assets folder. Whatever shows up in that assets folder is going to show up in this palette inside of Unity. Okay? Let's prove it to you. Okay? What if I went back over to my Finder outside of Unity and I made a new folder inside of my assets directory? Let's see what happens. Let's go back into my Finder. So I'm inside of my assets directory. And what if I create a new folder? And I'll call this new folder models. That's not how you spell models. There we go. Models. Okay? Check it out. To prove that this is the live environment, let's go back over into Unity. Bum, 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 bum. What's in Unity now? That same models folder. What we see in the project tab is a direct representation of the contents of our assets folder. What we have in that folder is going to show up here. Okay? Let's get some stuff into our game. Let's start importing some elements. Oh, before I go too much further, I forgot to mention this, okay? Because what shows up in our assets folder is a representation of the elements that are in our game, it's really crucial, if not critical, that we manage this project directory very, very carefully, okay? At the beginning of our little conversation today, I talked about having a master project directory that had a child folder for all of our raw master Luxology project files, and then another folder for all of our raw master Unity project files, right? And on my screen is the one that's just simply titled Forge. Okay, so there it is. Here's all my Modo stuff. I want to take my Unity stuff and throw it in that exact same location. That way, I have one master folder inside of my hard drive that contains all of the information for every single layer of my project. It's all of my raw work files, all my raw Luxology stuff. And then it has another separate hierarchy that just contains all of my Unity stuff. Okay? It's important that we separate all this information out so that one does not impact another. Okay? But we still want to have it parented, if you will, inside of a master folder that acts as a single location for us. By having it kind of separated out like this, it allows us to have multiple projects inside of our hard drive that are completely independent from each other. Okay, that's important. Good media management. Okay, let's go back over into Unity. Okay, so I just changed the location of my project directory and it freaked out. So let's open up my project. So I just clicked on Unity and I got to go open others. And I got to go find my project directory, okay? So here's Forge. Now, when you're opening a project, you're opening a folder, not a scene file, right? You're opening an entire project directory. And it's going to scan that project directory for all the important Unity stuff that it needs to open up your game. So you're not opening up like a Luxology LXO file, or you're not even opening up that Unity scene file. You're opening up your project directory, okay? That one Unity master folder. If you look very carefully at my screen here, you can see that I've actually selected the wrong one. So let me go select the right one. I need to open up Pat's Forge, as that's the file that contains all of my Unity stuff. So I'll hit open, and now we're on our way. It's going to take a moment. There we go, and we're back. Okay. So when you're opening projects inside of Unity, you're opening your master project directory. Unity is then going to scan the contents of that project directory and put the contents of the assets folder over there in your projects tab. All right, so now that we understand a little bit more about working inside of the Unity environment, let's start importing in some of these assets that we exported from Modo. So check it out. It's really easy to do this. All right. So we have this create menu that will allow us to generate a whole bunch of stuff, okay? But it's not going to allow us to import, and they've actually changed some of this. Awesome. Good times. It's not going to allow us to import stuff. So a lot of folks get confused, like, well, how do we import something? I want to import some content here. I want to be able to, get a model in. Well, we're not going to do it through this create menu, although there are some important things in here, like creating a folder. Maybe I want another folder here called textures. There we go. I want to drag it out of this hierarchy. There we go. So it's kind of by itself. FYI, Unity is always, if you're in this one column layout as I am, Unity is always, always, always going to list it alphabetically. Okay, we don't get to control that, unfortunately. All right, so if you wanted to import in an asset, it's really easy. There's a couple ways you can do it. The fastest way is just to right-click in the empty space inside your project tab, and then import new asset. Okay? I'll bring open the standard OS dialog box, and now we can very quickly find where we want, or the files that we want to import in. So there's my Colada file. It's currently saved on my desktop. Remember that. It's currently on my desktop, and I'm importing this file into my system. Okay? Let's do it. Forge version 2 _ unity.dae. We'll hit import, and importing our assets, and there it is. You can even zoom around, look at it. You can't zoom in over here, unfortunately. You can just look at it. Okay. There we go. Let's look at exactly what's happened here. So because I had my models folder already selected when I right-clicked and hit import new asset, my project, my object was automatically placed inside of that folder. Now, whenever we import in any model file, two things are automatically going to be generated. We're going to create a parent node, if you will, for that entire object. And a materials folder is automatically going to be created. Okay? Let's expand the contents of each one of these and really start to understand the role of their children. Let's start with the actual model itself. Notice the name, notice the icon. We have a little blue cube with a little document, a little piece of paper next to it. This represents the contents of the entire project, or excuse me, the entire model. This model in the Unity world is actually constructed from a number of different children or component pieces. If we were to expand it, check it out. And I think I may have exported the wrong one, but this is not bad. See, this is what happens when you don't do a good job of cleaning up your item list over in Unity, or excuse me, over in Modo. Look what came in. Look what the DAE project file grabbed on its way out of Modo. This is because I didn't do a good job. I must have exported this version of my project file before I nuked all those elements. If you don't clean up your item list, this is what's going to flow into Unity. Okay? It grabbed everything. Okay? It grabbed everything. It grabbed all my different cameras. It grabbed all of my backdrop items. And it even grabbed some of my shaders too, which is kind of crazy to me. Okay, whatever's in your item list is going to show up over here in Unity. I don't want any of this, and I don't want a majority of this stuff. So we have a couple things we can do. Okay? A couple things we can do. We can go through and very quickly find the elements that we want to delete. Okay? So actually have, so if you look at what's come in, these little guys, these are pieces of geometry. Okay? The ones, little cool grid icon, those are geo. Okay? And I only want the rough one. And if you look very carefully as to what has happened inside of Unity, what's happened to my model? Automatic. Look at the wireframes of the geometry. Yeah, it triangulated everything. Okay? This is normal. This is going to happen. You can't stop it.
What will it do with triangles that are already there?
I think that they're going to be left alone. I try really, really hard not to have any triangles in my scene. So it's something that I avoid, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be left alone. Okay, we can delete certain parts of this entire project file if you'd like. For example, I definitely don't want my layout. So if you right-click on it, you can do delete. And let's see, is it going to let me do it? No, it's not even going to let me do it here. Yeah, okay. So we have a whole bunch of stuff. So these are all kind of like little locators down here at the bottom. These locators have some very specific information associated with them. But for a majority of it, I don't want it. I don't want a lot of this stuff in. And as you can see, I can't delete it. Okay? So I'm going to delete this entire thing. Let's delete that entire object. And let's do it again. Let's see. I want to import in another asset. Maybe I get lucky here. Let's go grab the FBX file. Yeah. Brr. And it's still, I thought I had deleted all this stuff. No, I didn't delete any of it. That's right, because my Modo project file crashed before or after I deleted it. So let me just take a step back here. I had forgotten about that. I'm going to go back into Unity and delete my model and delete all the materials. And just very quickly jump back over into Modo real fast and delete everything that I don't need. Yeah.
Do you know if they reset the passwords for each well or something?
I don't know. This is the first I've heard of an issue.
Has anyone else had issues logging into each well?
All right, there we go. Let me export out this again. I'm going to do export as. I'm going to grab my DAE Colada file, replace it. All right. So now, back in Unity, let's try this again, shall we? Import a new asset. I'm going to grab my Colada file. Yay, here we go. And this is what I want to get. Okay? This is a better thing. And I forgot to, this render node, you're probably not going to delete because this is actually the shader tree coming through. Okay? However, look what we have here. We have a couple different things that we want to define. Okay? So we have our model file itself. Forge version 002_Unity. That's the name of the project file. Excuse me, that's the name of the model file. And then the actual chunk of geometry that's showing up in my properties list here represents the name of my item that I had in my item list. Okay? Rough is the name of the mesh item that I had over in Modo. All right. So a couple different things here. We have to kind of start to analyze how Unity is working with all these model files, because it's going to come in with a couple different assets here, or a couple different levels that we have to manage locally inside the app itself. Okay, check it out. We have the mesh itself, and this is just purely geometry. But there's an association that we made over in Modo between the geometry and the materials, right? We selected some polygons, we assigned them their own material group, and we made a relationship between those two different levels, right? Well, the item that I currently have selected within my scene, the one that's called rough, is only representing the geometry. To see the total relationship between those materials, we have to grab this guy, this one called rough down here, the one with the blue cube on it. In my mind, the ones with the blue cube in many ways are kind of like controllers. They're collections of a whole lot of other things all in one place. Geometry, scripts, materials, textures, they're all going to be influenced and controlled by the blue cube and the one with the document next to it. Now, don't forget, you can forget about render, and you certainly can forget about this avatar stuff. We're going to talk about that later. That's something that Unity is collecting and creating by itself when we import this in. All right, now notice that I have the model document selected inside of my project list. And let's just take a gander at what it's doing. All right. The inspector is going to give us some nice clues as to how Unity is interpreting these in model files as they're being imported into Unity. The first section, you can see there's a lot of information here that's been grayed out. The transform information's there. But look, it says rough and mesh filter. It's automatically grabbing the geometry and making that a component of a much larger object. If you think about it, that little blue cube with the document is really a whole bunch of little pieces all connected to each other. And we can see those little pieces divided out here in our inspector. The transform is a little piece. The mesh filter is another piece. The mesh renderer, which tells the computer how to draw this shape, is another piece. And then keep cruising down. What do you see there in my inspector? Materials, okay? This is where all the materials are going to, this is the location that the materials are linked to, okay? So here's all the materials that are associated with this element, okay? We also get materials down here. Okay, materials down here. Now the cool thing about working inside of Unity is that we can have one material be applied to as many different models as we want, which makes it a really cool way to work. Okay, We can have these global materials, kind of like base shaders to a certain degree over, or base materials, excuse me, over in Modo that can influence a lot of disconnected pieces. Materials are the one element that can travel between different model files really, really easily, which is pretty neat. However, we need to go ahead and start assigning the role of these materials, or excuse me, the contents of these materials to our little guy. All right. Does anyone want to take a stab at how we get our little forge into my scene? How do I get it into my hierarchy? Into my level? Drag and drop, man. Here we go. I'm just going to drag it from my project tab into my hierarchy. And there it is. You can see that it's cruising, just chilling at the origin of my Unity project file, or my level. There it is. Pretty cool. We can see the camera down here. Let's play my game. And nothing happens because I don't have any controllers in there. Okay. Let's so there's my little forge here. Let's kind of round the rest of this out. Let's just very quickly create the rest of my scene here. You can generate some content inside of Unity. I want to make a little ground plane for my guy to chill on. Okay. So I'm going to go to my game object, pull down menu at the top of the screen, create other, and I'm just going to create a plane. There we go. Ba-ba, there it is, and let's just position this where we want to go. FYI, the guys down at Unity have made a fantastic series of keyboard shortcuts for move, rotate, and scale that are identical to the keyboard shortcuts that we're used to working with in Modo. So if I hit the R key, I can just very quickly scale up that ground plane, and I'm on my way. Okay, awesome. Pretty cool. Now I need a light. If you look at my game view downstairs, what we see is what we get. This is exactly what the gamer is going to get. So Waddell, how do I have a light? Any questions or any ideas? Game objects. Everything in Unity is a game object. So if we wanted to create a light, a cube, a plane, whatever, we have to create that from the game object pull-down menu at the top of the screen. So the game object, create other, and let's just do a light. Let's do a directional light. Ta-da! There it goes. You can see the icons just chilling at the origin of the scene, and it's starting to behave identically to the way the game object lights would work over in Unity. Or excuse me, the way the directional lights work over in Modo. Okay. Last but not least, we have to have some sort of controller in there that allows our gamer to run around our scene. In Unity, we have to physically create our game controllers. But the guys down at Unity have made some presets for us that do a really great job. If you were following along and constructed your scene like I did, you imported and created your character controllers when we created our project directory. And here it is. Here's the first-person controller prefab. And I'm going to left-click and drag that guy into my scene. Now, with our first-person controller prefab, we have to be very mindful that this is a true three-dimensional object and that has some scripts associated with it to make it work inside of our game. Right now, the little capsule here is penetrating through the floor of my ground plane. And let's just see what happens. Let's rotate my little guy around. Okay, that way he can see my house. Awesome. Let's play the game. There goes my house. Oops. Okay, so I need to stop my game and reposition this element with the move tool so that my little capsule is floating above my house. Automatically. And then boom. Okay, so there we go. And now we can use the WASD keys to look at our house from all different angles. Aha. Here we go. Not only can I walk up the stairs, but I can walk through my house. I gotta fix that. Yes, ma'am. So this was created when I created a new project. There's a whole bunch of little buttons. One says character controller. Now, if you didn't do that when you created your project, you can add those after the fact. It is really, really easy to do that. if you right click in your project palette, your project tab, you can do import package and check it out. Just want to make sure that the character controller package is selected. So you can always add these standard assets in after the fact if you didn't make your scene or if you didn't make your project with them. Excuse me. All right, as I just demonstrated, we have a little bit of a problem. What is my problem? I can run right through my house. I don't want to run right through my house. Although it is kind of cool to be chilling inside of my house. I can check out the inside. This is a pretty good looking house. That it's teeny tiny. That it's teeny tiny. Yeah, we'll fix that here in a minute. Let's little victories first. Let's just get it so that I can not run through my house. In order for the computer to generate a collision event, which will stop my first-person controller prefab from penetrating through the exterior walls of my house, we have to tell the computer to make these colliders for us. Okay? When you get to 426, we'll talk a lot about colliders. Colliders give us an opportunity to do a lot of really neat things, including set off triggers and use it to, as containers for code and stuff. It's really kind of neat. But for today, what we want to do is generate what's called a mesh collider. You can do this really easily by going into your project directory and clicking on the master document that controls our little object here. Now check it out. If we were to zoom over to your inspector, there's a couple things in here that we may want to change. Okay? Under the meshes category, we have an option here called Generate Colliders. And if we turn that on, we'll be able to generate mesh colliders upon import. Now, the thing that people often do, or what they often miss, is this apply button. You change the settings for your object, you have to apply them. There we go. And I may have to re-import this into the mix. Let's just see real fast. Yep, we're good to go. So let's play our game now. And now, as soon as it loads, there it is. Clunk. Clunk. Mine didn't have stairs, but I can walk up the roof and then slide back off. All right. The second obvious thing, as was previously noticed, was my house is teeny tiny, so I need to make my house a little bit bigger. Let me stop my game and select my house. And you can select things just by left-clicking on it in the OpenGL viewport. And then I'm going to hit the R key. You can also hit this button right here. And I want to scale it up until it matches the illusion that I'm after. There we go. And now when I play my game, things are going to behave a whole lot better. Yeah, there it is. This is starting to feel like a forge. I can walk up to it, do a little blacksmithing, perhaps go in the door. Looking good. All right. A couple other things, though. What about those textures? What about those materials that we painstakingly crafted inside of our scene? Well, we need to edit the materials. I mentioned earlier that when we generate our material network over in Modo, that the materials are going to make the trip over here into Unity, but we have to go back in and reassign all of those textures back to their associated materials. It's really easy to do this, but it requires a little bit of labor. So let's do it real fast. I have to physically go in to this materials folder. And if I click on it, here are all the materials. Okay. Luckily, it took, some of these are named, but for the most part, I'll be able to figure out the role within the scene. And I need to import the textures that are going to be plugged into these materials. So how do we import an asset? Because the texture file, those JPEGs that I downloaded from CD Textures are an asset that we want to use inside of our game. How do I import an asset into Unity?
You can go
Asset import, or
you can drag it to the texture folder.
I love it.
Or
Or
you can do it in the file folder, finder folder.
there we go. So 3 different ways. So you absolutely could just right-click inside your project tab, import new asset. Okay, there we go. Let me grab my roof tiles. Hit import. It's going to show up here in a second. Boom, there they are. Awesome. Now let's check out what Unity has done here. So here is the actual roof tiles that I just imported into Unity. Where do you think it's currently residing, though? Is Unity directing it to look at that guy right there on my desktop? No. What did it do? Yeah, it copied it. It copied that asset, and then it pasted it into my assets folder. So the original file is still in its original location. Case in point, let's go to Pat's Forge, open up our assets directory. There it is. Okay. In addition, my model file was also copied and pasted into this new directory. There it is. Okay, fantastic. So when you import assets, you're not moving them, you're copying and pasting them from one location into another. The originals are always going to be retained in their starting location. Okay, they're not going to leave. We like this because, again, it makes our project independent from the rest of our system. All right. One other way of importing documents into Unity that's kind of cool. We don't necessarily even have to do it through the Unity application itself. We could just take all of these, any asset, just drag it into our assets folder, and it's automatically going to show up in Unity. So I just dragged my woodruff 106_2 SJPEG into my assets directory. If I look at what happened over here, boom, there it is, just popped in. Okay, that's a live folder. Whatever we put inside the assets folder in our Finder, it's going to show up in our projects tab right here in Unity. Let's do it again, just so everyone can kind of see what's going on. Yeah. Yeah. The materials are the only thing that automatically comes with it because it's embedded in the actual model file. Bingo. Yep. Bingo. So I have two more that I need to get in here. So I'm just going to drag and drop them into my assets folder, and we're on our way. Let's jump back over into Unity. Once I click, it's going to import the assets. There we go. So I want to do myself a little bit of a favor here and just drag and drop these elements into a folder that I created called textures, just to keep everything organized. All right. And now, check it out. We can go into our material, and we're going to start dragging and dropping all of these images into this image well. So I have my brick round material selected, and I'm just going to drag and drop, boom, in one mighty fill swoop. Don't single left click on the texture because then the contents of that texture are going to show up in the inspector. Drag and drop in one action, and you can automatically apply the contents of that image well to be connected to the image. In the moment, look at the moment I reassigned that texture to its correct material, showed up on my model inside of Unity. These are live models. It's kind of fun working in an OpenGL environment. Okay, let's continue working. Let's do it. Let me grab, I don't think I did a material for my chimney, but the plaster. Let me just left click and drag on the image map, put it in the image well. Boom, there it is. And all of it's just being correctly mapped, and everything looks amazing. Last but certainly not least, let's do the support beams, or wood rough, excuse me. There we go. Everything's starting to look. You know, I've never really done that. Let's try it. Maybe? No.
I more meant like onto the selection of the wood rough material that's inside the directory.
Oh no, I don't think that's going to work because that's just going to try to move the file. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to move the file into that folder. Yeah, you have to have the materials selected and then drag and drop into the image well. The other way that you could do it, and I'm not a fan of this, but it definitely works. For example, let's go to roof tiles. You can hit this little select button in the image well itself, and it's going to bring open the asset browser, and then you can just select the image that you want to apply to that material through there. Some people like using the asset browser. I'm not a big fan of it, but that's just me. Now, yeah, so why are my roofing tiles showing up humongoid? You got it. Over in Modo, I didn't make the UVs bigger. I tiled it more by changing that horizontal and vertical wrap. Okay? this is a property that we need to change in Unity. And if you look very carefully on the material there in the inspector, we have this tiling parameter. Tiling is very, very similar, if not identical, to that horizontal and vertical wrap feature that we were messing around with over in Modo. So I think in Modo I had a value of 5 in here for the horizontal and vertical wrap. So I'm going to tile this 5 by 5, zoom out. Yeah, and that's now identical to what I had over in Modo. Okay, so we can continue changing how we want this to show up here in Unity. It gives us a tremendous amount of control. Maybe we want our roofing tiles a little bit smaller. There we go. This is the power of having these UV maps and the power of having these independent materials connected to the geometry in our scene. Starting to see it? Starting to see it a little bit? You see it? All right. Let's take a break. Let's take a break. Okay, so let's come back and let's just chat about environments for a bit, and then we'll get into our lab assignment. Now, we're just working with a really cool, funky little plane. That's it. I want to have a little bit more than that. I want to have an entire world for my guy to sit in. Thus, into the role of the terrain tool inside of Unity. So we're going to delete the little plane, the little ground plane that my guy is chilling on, and we're going to create a cool terrain now. So let me go in and just right-click on my plane in my hierarchy and choose delete. And to create a terrain, it's really easy. Oh wait, they've changed this. They have changed this. Hold on a sec. Is it game object now? Create other? Is it in here? Yeah, it used to have its own pull-down menu, so I apologize. There it is, terrain. Terrain, and that makes sense that it's in the game object pull-down menu now. Huh? Yeah, it used to have its own pull-down menu. So in this version, they've put it in the terrain or the game object section. So we'll create a terrain, and this is what happens. Okay, if you look at your scene view, this is what you get. Okay, it's going to place the bottom left-hand corner of your terrain at the origin of our scene, which is way down over there. Now let's talk about how we can use these terrains, because we want to be able to use these, use the tools inside of Unity to very quickly create mountains and valleys and all that other fun stuff. Okay. The way we get to these tools is in the inspector. I have my terrains selected inside my hierarchy, and the inspector exposes all of the tools that will allow me to sculpt my terrain, very similarly to the way the mesh sculpting tools in Modo behave and work. So if you look at what we got going on over here, these tools will allow us to use a whole series of brushes to generate what we want. So I want to use the push-pull tool or the raise-lower terrain with the soft brush, and I can make my brush size a little bit bigger. You can see that the little blue dot underneath my cursor gets bigger. And now, when I left-click and drag, now my brush opacity is at 50%. Let's increase the strength a little bit. There we go. Even zoom in. There we go. If I left-click and drag, you can see that we're getting a cool result. Let's really crank the intensity. There we go. The opacity kind of drives the intensity of this effect. And we can create some mountains, which are kind of cool. You can change the shape of your brush or the fall off of your brush to create a much different result. Now, every once in a while, Unity is going to do this, where it kind of seemingly lowers the quality of the terrain. It's not going to lower the quality of it. Okay, it's just shading it at a different level of detail at this view. If I was to get really close to it, which is hard at the moment, this is where being able to fly around your scene is pretty cool. Just holding down the right mouse button, fly around my scene. Okay, there we go. Continue. Oops. I can continue using the raise and lower command here. I can carve out my detail, which is pretty cool. You can also have the exact opposite effect on your scene by holding down what I believe is, what is it? Alt presses in? Hold on a sec. It's Shift. That's right. It's the opposite of what Modo does. So if you hold down Shift, it'll pull in, and you can shrink your terrain.
Alt is in Modo, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. You also have the paint height, which is basically going to take a defined height. So right now it's at 136. I can flatten my entire world to 136 meters. This is actually a nice addition to our tool set, this little flatten button. Because what if I wanted to carve out of like a river or something in my terrain? Well, in order for us, our sculpting tools are never going to be able to push those polygons below a height of 0. That's the floor. Okay, so if we wanted to carve out a river, we have to raise the entire floor by a value and then carve down to a value of 0. It used to be a little bit more difficult to do this, and I'm happy to see that they've changed it a little bit. So let's change our height to like 200, and then we'll just flatten everything to 200. Okay, and now I can go back in and with my push-pull tool and check it out. Now I can carve. Yeah, it makes me very happy too. They changed this. Yeah, and now we can carve out a riverbed and create true three-dimensional environments. Okay, that's kind of cool. You also have the smooth tool. So this behaves very, very similarly to the smooth tool over in Modo. So it's just going to kind of resolve a lot of the tangency issues and generally, well, smooth things out, which is kind of nice. All right, let's create something that's a little bit more compelling here. I want to create a mountain range. They've changed the behavior of these painting tools. They used to be a whole lot more finicky. I'm very happy to see that they're starting to change the algorithm that drives this, because it used to be very, honestly, kind of uncontrollable. This seems much more controllable, and I'm very happy to see that. All right, so now I'm creating some cool little mountains for my terrain. I'm happy with this. Yeah, my forge is way down over there, so let me just move my forge up. There we go. Just make sure it's just kind of sitting there on my ground, and I'm pretty close, I think. Yeah. All right, same with my first-person controller prefab. Let's move him up to a value of 200 and move him kind of close over here next to my house. He's in my house. There we go. Let's play my game. So now we have a terrain. Oops. Looks like my controller is, yeah, in the ground. There we go. Let's play now, and ta-da! We can run through the hills. The hills are alive. There's my house, and I can run across my cool little terrain, which is pretty rad. Pretty cool. Okay, so we can sculpt our terrains inside of Unity pretty easily. But what if we wanted to create some textures? What if I want to have some grass in there? Well, the terrain tools inside of Unity will allow us to paint textures on pretty quickly as well. Let's go through the process of getting all that stuff in. And I want to import in another standard asset here. So I want to right-click in my project directory, import package, and I'm going to go into my terrain assets. And this is really, just hit import, and this is just going to give us a lot of extra textures and a couple trees and some elements just for us to play around with here in the next couple of minutes. The terrain tools in Unity are going to give you the building blocks that will allow you to go in and very quickly craft a really cool looking environment for your guy to chill in. All right, if you look at the terrain assets, we have some grass textures in here. We have some, so here's our grass. We have some dirt textures, and we also have a single tree, and we'll take a look at this palm tree here in a minute. So let's get our grass going in our terrain. So let's go back into my hierarchy, select my terrain, and then this paintbrush is going to be what we want to work with. We're going to paint our textures, just like we painted our textures in Photoshop and in Modo. But like both of those applications, we have to go in and tell the app which texture to use to paint along our terrain. To do that, what we have to do is click on this Edit Textures button. It's going to allow us to add a texture, and you're going to get this cool little window. Inside this first image well, I'm going to hit the Select button, and I'm going to find maybe like this one. There we go. Hit Add. Now the first one that you add is going to flood your entire terrain with that texture, but don't worry about this, because we can always go back in later and change some of these details. So now our entire environment is full of grass. What if I wanted to throw in some dirt textures and vary the pattern a little bit? Well, check it out. Let's go back to that Edit Textures once again. We'll add a texture this time. Same process. Let's do grass rock. Hit Add, and now with this, if we select it here in our asset browser, check it out, I can now paint it in. That might have been a little extreme. So let's use one of these brushes, and we'll just kind of stamp it in. Polka dots. That also might be a little extreme. I think my opacity needs to be dialed in a little bit, but we can just kind of randomly put some dirt in there and run our way. I'm not going to go crazy with it. Maybe I went a little too far in certain situations, so let's just stamp some grass back in there. Kind of continue to massage it a little bit. Let's play our game, see what we have. Yeah, and now our environment's beginning to come to life. Yeah, so now we have some dirt in there, we have some grass. Things are starting to look a whole lot more realistic. Well, if we can do textures, what about trees and bushes and rocks and stuff? That's the next tool inside our terrain, instead of a series of tools. So if I go back to my terrain inside my hierarchy, check it out. The one that looks like a tree is going to allow us to paint in trees, which is pretty cool. Same process though. We have to edit our trees, add a tree. It's going to open up that little browser. Yeah, let's check it out. So here's the tree section. It's looking for a game object. If you hit this little target, it's going to open up your asset browser, and you physically have to define a model. So I'll grab that one. I'll double click on it. Here we go. And hit add. And now, palm trees. Palm trees everywhere. Palm trees in my house. And then if I hold down the shift key, I can take them away.
Is there a way you can decrease the rate basically decrease the palm tree spawn rate?
Absolutely. Check out your settings. And you have a lot of control over how these trees are going to be applied into our scene, including the density, the variation, the height, a lot of different randomization values that will allow you to create some really cool effects. So I have some big trees, some small trees.
Could those trees theoretically be destructible?
Theoretically, yes. I wouldn't know how to do that, but yeah, theoretically, yes. Let's play our game. Let's see what we got. There we go. Yeah, pretty cool. Now I have a whole forest of trees. Doesn't quite look believable yet, right? What's missing? Sky. Even before that. Light. I have a directional light in there. Grass. Go back to the light, though. Shadows. We want some shadows. We want some shadows. In order for this environment to feel a little bit more real, we're going to have to cast some shadows. I'm really happy about this because in the free version, they've enabled real-time shadows now, which is great. Real-time shadows for one directional light, which is good enough for me. It really is. I'm very happy about this. So let me show you how to turn it on. It's wicked easy. Yeah. For everything, including global illumination. That's the reason you spend, $1,500 for the Pro version, is that the rendering capabilities of Unity become unlocked, and they can do some really cool things. 10,000 times better. Yeah. Yeah, they're being incredibly. They know what they're doing. Let's put it that way. They know what they're doing. Yeah, they're doing like the Coca-Cola and Pepsi model of distribution. They give you the first taste for free, right? They give you a complimentary glass of Coca-Cola, and then you love it so much that you want to go back in and buy a six-pack afterwards. Okay, they're doing the same thing. They're giving us an awesome, awesome game engine, and then if you pay for it, if you upgrade to the Pro version, you get about 2,000 extra features that really make it a AAA-worthy game engine that will rival anything coming out of. Well, I shouldn't say anything that's coming out of Unreal. The Unreal Engine's pretty ridiculous. They can do some really neat things in there, but it's up there. It's up there. If you want to see some really good demonstrations of the true rendering prowess of Unity, check out their website. They have this fantastic short film, actually, that was rendered entirely in real time in Unity. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah. I believe the full retail license is $1,500. However, there is an academic version. Aha. And I think the academic version is $150 a year. Yeah, 30-day pro trial. Okay. So here's the Unity website, and yeah, you can do some really, really cool things. So let's go into the Unity section. Yeah, you can do some really awesome things. They used to have quality. Yeah, I mean, you can do some pretty cool effects inside. I mean, that's pretty rad. That's pretty cool. So it's there. It's there. It really is. It's on par This inclusion culling stuff is really rad. That allows us to have really deep, complex levels that are not all active. It divides your level into small little chunks, and then it not randomly, but depending on what your character's looking at in the scene, it deactivates all the chunks that your character's not looking at. So the entire level isn't loaded into your game or into the computer at the exact same time. So it allows us to have like World of Warcraft in Unity pretty quickly. It's awesome. No, it's almost identical. It's almost identical, and I think that's really kind of why Unity is such a prevalent app within our market, is that you can do 100% of your game development in the free version. If you want it to look really, really pretty, and if you want to optimize at the professional level, then spending that $1,500 is a no-brainer. Identical, absolutely. You can build the game. I have made self-contained games that look no different from any other game engine with the free version of Unity.
So you say you can do what the pro version could do?
No, it's the exact same. The pro version is going to unlock a lot of rendering features and a lot of optimization features. So if you have the palm trees are going to look amazing. Yeah. And the optimization of your scene is going to be pretty amazing too. Okay? Big levels, yeah, big scenes, because you don't want to be loading all the assets for that entire scene into your game at once. Frame rate's going to drop instantly. So those pro features are going to allow you to have incredibly dense, super detailed levels that will be optimized to run at a pretty decent frame rate. Yeah, one of these, case in point, the guys at Unity have done something really kind of neat. You can actually buy a subscription, a monthly subscription to Pro if you wanted to. And I see people doing this all the time out there in the forums. They'll do all of their game development. They'll do their entire game development in the free version, and then when it comes time to publish their game, they rent Unity for like $75 a month for like a couple months. They publish their game, and then they're done. Yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. It really is, and that's why so many people are doing it now. And Unity, they make a ton of money. They're making money either way, so they're happy. They're happy. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the business model that Unity's putting out there for its users. It really does support us as the content developers, and they're not trying to rob us like other game engines.
So I could make my entire game in the free version and then get a 30-day trial?
I don't know about that. The trial may have some limitations on the build settings. But yeah, it is Pro, but I've never actually done the trial of Pro. But it's, theoretically, yeah, give it a try, see what happens. Theoretically. It might, I would imagine, whenever I hear the word trial, some things are usually stripped away. They might not let you build a game, because that's the final stage. We author everything inside of Unity, and then we hit the magical build button, and it creates an executable standalone game file that we put it on a CD, we send to the App Store, or we start playing locally on our computer. Yeah, you could. Give it a try. See what happens. Yeah. Oh, bummer. Yeah, force quit it. Right-click on the icon down in the dock. And force quit. Yep. All right. I encourage you guys to go download Unity. It's free. You can download it from unity3.com. 3D.com and start having fun with it. So I forgot, we were talking about directional lights, and let's just go ahead and do it real fast. Adding shadows, real-time shadows inside of Unity is wicked easy, okay? Notice that I have a directional light inside of my level, okay? And then over here in my inspector, under the light section, we have shadow type, and the default set to no shadows. Well, now we can do hard shadows. Yeah, oh, it's not doing it for the trees. It's doing it for the original tree. Well, let me see. No, it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. I bet you those shadows are going to fade in as I get closer to them. That's exactly what I want. Yeah, that's actually good. That's actually good. But just being able to get real-time shadows of our trees is fantastic. In previous iterations of this class, believe it or not, generating that's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Generating these real-time shadows was a little bit of an issue. You had to bake the lamps, and it was just a problem. Yeah, we're going to talk about those other assets in future weeks. Okay. Answer to your question is yes, absolutely. These are just models. Okay, we can even make our own if we wanted to. And now things are starting to look pretty amazing. Yeah, I'm digging it. One of the cool things you can do with your lights is control the intensity. And you can see the impact of the intensity show up almost instantaneously inside your scene. Let's also, I wanted to turn down strength. That's what I was after. Because those are some really dark shadows. If I just dial my strength down a little bit. Also change the color of your light. Lights are never white, lights are never white. They're always yellow. Yellow and blue. So I want to make my light just a slight yellowish. Play my game. Things are looking great. Things are looking really great, actually. I'm very pleased with the result that I'm getting. Huh? You know what? We're going to talk about that in the future, but if you want to start exploring it, do it, man. It's just a polygon with a shader applied to it. I got a palm tree stuck in the middle of my house. Awesome. Very cool. All right. So that's how we work with environments. That's how we craft our environments. So here's what I would like you to do for this week's homework assignment. What I would like you to do is to finish up your forge, okay, your blacksmith shop. Get it all textured. Get it into Unity. Then once you're in Unity, make a simple environment like I've done here. Okay? Don't spend a lot of time on your environment, as it will change. It will change. Okay? So this is just kind of an exercise to get our object in, change the environment, or create an environment, and start getting used to working in this new place.
Does the environment have to be as big as you made it?
No, it can be smaller.
Okay, it could be just really simple, like small, and not being too big, not too small.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely. When you're done, however, here's what you're going to do. At the end of this process, you're going to submit your project directory to me on D2L. Okay? So let me just make sure I save my scene. A lot of folks forget to save their scene, their level. Save scene, and let's call this level 02. There we go. Now, I'm going to quit Unity. You never have to save your project file. You'll always have to save your scene, though, within your project file. So when you're done, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your master folder. So the folder that contains the subfolder for all your Unity stuff, and the folder that contains all of the content for your Modo stuff, and I want you to submit this to D2L. So basically, I want everything for your blacksmith shop. I want it all. I want it all, okay? Now, in order for us to get this into D2L cleanly, we have to zip up our folder. So right-click on it, compress forge, and then submit that compressed archive to the Dropbox on D2L, okay? They're going to be a little bit big, so please make sure you give yourself enough time to compress and upload this before the deadline next week, okay? Questions? Everyone good? Kind of understand the scope of it? Now, to help you guys out, I've crafted a small, very simple lab assignment that will get you used to getting things into Unity, okay? If you download the resources that come with this week's content on the website, so go to the Resources tab. Here it is, Historical Buildings. You can download that zipped archive. I can't take credit for these models. I didn't make them. But I want you to import all 3 of these project files into Unity. Okay? So make a little scene, a very simple scene that includes all 3 of these buildings in Unity, and then zip up and compress your project directory like I just showed you, and upload that to the lab assignment Dropbox on D2L. No, just give me the project directory, and then I'll open your project directory and see how you did. Okay?
Do you want these UV maps
Nope, nope, don't worry about it. I don't want them textured. Just get them out of Modo and into Unity.
Does this week's class have a live stream?
Yep. And it hopefully should still be streaming. Hopefully. Let's double check. Yep. Still streaming. So everything should still be there. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more, or if you need a little refresher on the stuff that we've talked about today, these two links, you need to bookmark these, okay? These are two phenomenal resources on learning how to work with the Unity game engine. Unity has a first-party educational site that's on the Unity website. That's amazing, okay? The Learn site on unity3d.com is fantastic. It's chocked full of some really fantastic video tutorials that are, I think, brilliantly done. It's a whole series of beginner graphics, and there's a whole bunch of videos. So start going through these videos. They're very, very well done, very well thought out and put together. So these are cool. These are very cool. There's two different areas in here that I would like you to take notice on. There's the modules, which are short little things. Okay, short little things like just how to work with meshes inside of Unity. I mean, it's really, really easy. Okay, and make it very simple for you to understand the kind of the engine that we're working with. Okay. Then there's also this project section, and I have a little bit of a beef with the project section because they say they're beginner, but they're not beginners. Okay, this first one is the roll-a-ball one. That's about as beginner-ish as they do. This stealth one is crazy advanced. It's actually very, very advanced. So they're nice little tutorials that take you through the entire development of a game. Buyer beware, though. They might be shooting above your skill level at the moment. Okay, but still bookmark it. Still use them. Be aware of them. I think that with this type of content, you can never have too much learning materials. The more we hit you from a number of different angles, the better you're going to do. The last resource that I linked in the website is another great website called Unity 3D Student. This is another really, really good website. Actually, to be entirely honest with you, it was so good. The guy that did this, Adam Goldsmith, that did all this, he did all the tutorials. He wrote a small little book about Unity, and he did such a good job. The guys down at Unity said, "Hey, why don't you just come work for us and make all of our first-party training tutorials?" So I thought that's really cool. Good for him. Very, very happy that he found success there. And these are also really, really good tutorials. I'll be honest with you, a majority of them focus on scripting. There's a lot of really good tutorials on there that start talking about how to work with terrains and environments and textures and all that stuff too. So two fantastic learning resources that will help you navigate the treacherous waters, if you will, of the Unity 3D system. Okay? Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, other questions? Is everyone kind of confident and understand what the expectations are for this week? So the lab assignment should take you all of 2 minutes to do. Okay? Just compress your project directory, upload it to the Dropbox on D2L, and you're done. Okay? And remember, wrap up the textures on your blacksmith shop and get those finished so you can start doing all the authoring over in Unity to flush out the totality of your little level. Okay? Questions, comments? All right. We got about 5 minutes left in class. Literally 5 minutes left in class. That doesn't happen very often.